In today's episode, I'm going to show you how to update the firmware on your Ender 3 V2, not just the motherboard, but also the display. And if you have an Ender 3 or Ender 3 Pro, you can do the same thing by changing one thing, the motherboard. I'll explain it all on today's Filament Friday. Filament Friday is brought to you by these Patreon supporters. In a previous video, I did talk about updating the firmware on the V2, and I made a mistake. I said you needed to rename it firmware.bin. You don't have to. As long as it's a different name than the firmware that's on there, you're good to go. So just that .bin file on the SD card, insert it, turn it on, and it updates. But the latest Creality version 1.0.1 has some bugs. First off, you can't run my bed level software. And also, if you try to do any pause to change filament, none of those work because it's missing some of the G-code commands. Well, Marlin has released a totally updated version which includes all those fixes, but Creality hasn't adopted it yet. But you can get it from my website. So I'll show that. We'll update this machine, and I'll show you how you can actually update the display to the latest firmware as well. So let's go through that right now. I updated my machine to the latest Creality version 1.0.1, and what this did is added the ability to save your configuration, but it doesn't save it to EEPROM. Let me show you. So let's say I want my max acceleration Y to be set to 600. So I go in here, I change it to 600, and then after that's set, 600, I go down to the storage configuration. You click on there, it beeps, and it should save it to the EEPROM, but it doesn't. It saves it to the SD card. I'll show you. So I'll turn it off, turn it back on after removing the SD card, go back to that, it's back to 500. But if I put the SD card in, because that's where the configuration was saved, turn it off, turn it back on, it reads that configuration, now it's back to 600. Version 1.0.1 also has some G-code issues. If I run my bed level, or if you try to do pause to change filament, it's not going to work because it's missing some G-code. Here's my bed level. It's supposed to pause right here and let me click the button, but it doesn't. It goes to the corner, it goes down, and then just moves on to the next point. It never lets me level the bed. But we can fix that with the latest Marlin. I actually included on my CHEPCLUB.com site. There's the link to get to it. And what you want to do is download the Marlin latest release. This is later than version 1.0.1. You put it on an SD card, and there's going to be basically two sections. You're going to have a folder called dwinset and the firmware.bin. That's all we want on this SD card. Shut off your machine, slide in that SD card with those two files, turn it back on, and your machine will update. And it's going to update to this latest version. Now, if you go down to info, it'll tell you version 0.0.6, but it's got the date. Even though it's an earlier number, it's a later version of firmware. If you update it and everything changes to Chinese, here's how you fix it. Go to the second menu item, click on it, scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see a CN. Click on the knob, it'll change to EN, and everything will change to English. That's how you fix it. Now, I did notice when I went to the control menu, the word storage was cut off. So I wanted to update the display to see if I can fix that. So let me show you how to update the display. Shut power off. Remove the SD card, and we're going to take that SD card. Remember it had the folder, the DWin folder? We're going to use that. So take the display off, disconnect the wire, and there's 4 screws you need to remove so we can get at the SD card that's on the display. Just take these screws off and then set those aside because we'll need to put this back together. So I just dumped them in my hand and set them aside. Now the back just pops off, but you got to take the knob off first, and then you just pull this and it unsnaps. And once you get it off, you can see there's an SD card slot. Take that SD card, and it's actually going to read that folder that's on here instead of the .bin file. Just slide it in, and now we'll hook up the cable, and then we're going to power this thing up, and the display will update itself from that folder that's on the SD card. So just flip power on, and the display will go black and then update, and then it'll change to a blue and then an orange. It looks yellow here, but it's actually really, really bright orange. Now we need to shut power off again and get that SD card out of there because we don't want to update it again. Just push it and it pops out. Take the SD card out, and now when we power it up, it should be the normal display. So power it up, and yep, normal display. So everything went as expected, but now let's scroll through and see if it fixed that word. Nope. So I'm going to have to contact them and have them fix that. That's something in the firmware. So from here, you just pop the cover back on and then shoot the 4 screws in. And then once those are in, put the knob back on. Then just connect the electrical connector and slide it back into the machine. You're all done. Now I want to leave the SD card out because I want to test this new firmware to see if the storage really works. Go to Control, Motion, Max Acceleration Y. Instead of 600, I'm going to make it 550. Now I'm going to save it by clicking on Origin Configuration. So now it should be saved. Now I'm going to shut power off and turn it back on. And remember, no SD card. So now let's go into Control, Motion, Max Acceleration, and 550. So it saved it. It's working. The new firmware is working. Now let's check my bed level. So here it is parked in the first position. I can come in here with a piece of paper and level it. And then when I click the button, it moves to the next spot. So now I could level at each spot and just press the button. So the G-code is now working. This new firmware fixes those issues. And there you have it. My Ender 3 V2 is totally updated. The latest firmware and the control board and also on the display. I have talked to the Marlin team about fixing that word being cut off. Hopefully that's fixed in the future. If you want to help support Marlin, because it's basically they do it for free, so their only support is through Patreon. I'll put a link to their Patreon in the description below. You can help support it. Updating your firmware with an SD card is awesome. But what if you got an Ender 3 or Ender 3 Pro? Well, you have an option. Big Tree Tech released the SKR Mini E3 a little while ago. This has been out for a while. A lot of people are already installed this on their machines. It's a plug and play. It's the same mounting, the same connectors as your stock Ender 3. You put this on, but it's 32-bit, and you can update it with the SD card. It's also got a display, an optional display, which is touchscreen. You can do the click and turn, but it's touchscreen, which even the V2 doesn't have that. I got this set on Amazon for $70. I plan to do a video on it. It's going to be out in the near future. But it's really, if you watch my Creality updates with the silent board, it's pretty much the same thing. Only this is only $30. It's cheaper than the silent board, and it has the silent drivers on it. So if you have an Ender 3 or Ender 3 Pro, you can still get the features that the V2 is giving you, and possibly more with a touchscreen. So don't go out and buy a V2 just because you want to update the firmware. Update your Ender 3. So that's it for this week. If you like what I'm doing here, maybe check out some of the other videos that are popping up and click on that CHEP logo and subscribe. That way you don't miss an episode. I'll see you next time right here at Filament Friday.